Well, with the play-in series now done, we can take a very deep breath, have a look at what's gone on, and then look forward to the final four. That's right, just 4 teams remain in the race for the NBL25 championship. Welcome to Moments That Matter. This is your Monday morning debrief. I'm Jack Heverin. Derek Rucker joins me on screen from Brisbane. D-Ruck, good morning to you. I'm not even sure how to describe what happened yesterday between South East Melbourne and Adelaide. Where do you want to begin?
Well, I hate corny cliches, but certainly it was a tale of two halves. And I thought Adelaide had it, Jack. I started writing to people saying, this is unbelievable. It really looked like Southeast Melbourne were buried. And in particular, with the way Kendrick Davis and Montrezl Harrell were playing, they looked unstoppable. And physically, I didn't think the Phoenix had anything. But they go into the change room. They come out, and you can see instantly Southeast Melbourne are carrying themselves differently. They're hungry. They're committed to the purpose. And they turn that thing around and outscore Adelaide 59-30 in the second half.
Let's talk Matt Hurt first and foremost. We will get to Adelaide very shortly. I think the dissection that's going to come from the Adelaide 36ers is going to be full on. Matt Hurt really struggled in the first half. He couldn't get into the game, had all sorts of issues guarding Montrezl Harrell. Steps up into the second half, ends up with 17 second half points and was a huge factor in the result.
It looked like he said, I'm not going to worry about whether or not I can stop Montrez. I'm going to go out there and get buckets in the second half and make them adjust to me, make Montrez defend me, and perhaps that will take away some of Montrez's energy when he has the ball. And it worked. And there was another huge moment in the game that you alluded to during the call, very astute by you, Jack. But the movement of Malik Lewis to defend Montrezl Harrell. And that really freed up Matt Hurt on the defensive end, so he didn't have to expend so much energy. And then Adelaide had no one that could guard Hurt, and that was a massive little interplay in the game.
Let's talk Malik Lewis. It's a really good point that you brought up earlier, and it deserves a bit of love here, because if you purely looked at the box score of the game, you would look at Malik Lewis's numbers and they wouldn't jump off the page. That's the trouble with looking at a box score and not watching a game. What he did on Montrezl Harrell in that second half, undersized and inexperienced, was enormous.
Jack, that second half and his moments on Montrezl Harrell, I believe, in terms of his NBA stock, were more significant than anything he had done through the course of the season. In a big-time game, he went up against a guy with Montrez's pedigree and did a very effective job in shutting him down. And if I'm an NBA scout, I'm looking at that and being highly impressed. We know the offense can come. He's got time to develop all of that. But the hunger and the savvy on the defensive end to understand what he needed to do in his one-on-one matchup, and also the significance of it in the moment in a do-or-die ball game, that's huge for Malik Lewis.
And then there was Ben Ayre, who has spent a lot of this season struggling for court time. He's had DNPs next to his name. You could see that he's been frustrated at times. He gets his number called yesterday, finishes with 17 points, 11 of them coming in the second half. They needed buckets, Derek. They needed offense. And they turned to Ben Ayre, and he delivered in a moment where they needed him most.
And let's not downplay the 2 threes I believe he hit in the first half. Jack, they only had 26 points at halftime. So for him to have 6 of those were huge just to keep them a little bit closer, even though they were down, I think 19 at the half. But Ben Ayre, it's a guy who I have a history with. Before PJC, there was Ben Ayre giving me a hard time about my comments and what I would say about his team when he was with the Cairns Taipans. But all the while, I respected this guy as a player. I love his self-confidence. I think he's a very talented offensive player and someone on the defensive end who has never received the credit that he was worthy of. And also, he deserves credit for the defense that he played on Kendrick Davis in the second half. But the 17 points, Jack, were huge. He ran the offense, he hit big shots, and he carried himself. He always carries himself with the swagger that at times isn't merited by his performance. He got very little court time all season. And again, Josh King deserves some credit for that. Loves the moment. This is a guy that will make big shots for you and works hard and knows how to win basketball games.
When they were that far down at halftime, to engineer the comeback that he did, this has got to go down as a Josh King masterclass, doesn't it?
It does. And this is a tired refrain for me, but go out there, NBL teams, and get yourself a coach. Don't worry about how much you spend. Go out and buy yourself a quality coach because, Jack, you don't have to worry about it. And you get moments like this where he changes the game at halftime, and now your team gets to advance somewhere where it hasn't been for several seasons.
Just on South East Melbourne, before we move away from them for a moment, how concerning would the first half have been? As you say, it was an all-time low for the Phoenix in terms of offense. Defensively, Adelaide were getting whatever they wanted. What would Josh King's analysis of the first half be today, do you think?
Well, he would have been alarmed yesterday, and he would have been alarmed this morning watching the video back, and probably in tremendous disbelief at how that team could have come out that way, but then also turned it around. Basically, it's a, guys, do you want to do this or not moment? And I think now they're untapped, Jack, and they have figured out a way to defend. Now, look, the next step is huge. The next step is really big, but than what they experienced yesterday?
It's different. I don't know whether it's more dangerous or less dangerous. It's different. And I think you and I have said this a lot. The big challenge is to beat Illawarra over the course of a series. You might get them once. Can you get them twice out of 3 games if you're South East Melbourne?
Well, if we want to focus on Illawarra now and touch on that series, Illawarra are going to throw waves at them. They're going to run the floor hard. They're going to use their size to their advantage. And they've got 2 all-NBL first-team guards that the Phoenix are going to have to defend. Now, yesterday, Nathan Sobey wasn't good. He came out, he looked like he was pressing early. He is going to be vital in that series on both ends. He needs to be really efficient offensively, and he's going to have to defend either Harvey or Kel to the best of his ability. He can't let those guys reach their averages when he has his moments on them.
The other is Derek Walton Jr. for South East Melbourne, who we think should be back for the semi-final series. We believe he was really close to playing during this play-in series. He's missed a lot of games, Derek. He's been out for quite a while with a hamstring injury. How do you use him? Do you use him as an off-the-bench spark kind of guy, perhaps, because they've been able to get a system that works with Foxwell, with Glover, and with Ben Ayre?
Yeah, that's true, but you bring Derek Walton Jr. back in the mix and it changes things significantly, provided he's at 80 to 85% of his potential and there's minimal rust on his game. Jack, let me tell you right now, if Derek Walton Jr. is capable, if he can play in that series, this is a pick'em series. I don't care where the final standings had each of these teams positioned. Southeast Melbourne like their matchup against Illawarra. They have bigs that they can throw against Illawarra. They have scoring, and when they're playing well on the defensive end, they've shown the ability to limit every team in this competition at some point during the season since Josh King has taken over.
Let's talk the Adelaide 36ers. If nothing else, that loss yesterday was on brand for this season.
It was. And, you know, I laugh at it, but I don't mean to laugh at it because it's heartbreaking for that team, especially the way they performed in the first half. Troubled, and they're so entertaining. Jack, can we have that team back? Let's run it back. Matt Weston, Grant Kelly, make it happen. Bring them back. That team is great for the league. And had not we had the melee and Melbourne, maybe things eventuate somewhat differently with their final position on the standing that maybe has them in the top 4 in a different play-in scenario. But was it a successful season? Yes and no. Did it bring a lot of attention to the Adelaide 36ers, Sixers, and did it probably increase their commercial value? Definitely.
That's interesting. And I didn't see that one coming from you. So you want to bring that whole team back after
Bring them all back, Jack.
after the self-inflicted meltdown that we saw yesterday. You want to bring that back again?
I certainly do. I love what I saw in Sydney against the Kings in the play-in eliminator. And then yesterday, they played a good 22 minutes, Jack. But, like I said, let's see what happens if everybody can come back. Now, look here. There's a selfish media component to this. I'm stepping outside of my basketball purist, and I'm going to interest levels that they give us. I loved it. Let's run it back.
We had the benefit of being at the game yesterday, so I'd love to hear how you thought watching it at home. But seeing it courtside, they were 15 points up and they started arguing with each other. All it took was 1 or 2 turnovers in that third quarter, 1 or 2 misses, 1 or 2 missed defensive assignments, and the whole thing imploded. Their body language, Derek, in a sudden death game, when they were still in control, to my eye, courtside was appalling yesterday.
Well, Kelsey Brown did a fantastic job of reporting on things that were happening in the huddle during the breaks and timeouts. And it is fascinating. I don't like seeing that from a team, and I certainly didn't enjoy it as a player. But Jack, I've said it many times, I'm all about drama as long as it's not mine. And they provide fantastic TV, and they have some great players. And again, most importantly, from a basketball perspective, if you run it back with them, this group therapy sessions where they get a better understanding of one another, this is a team that can compete for the title.
So they've got Isaac Humphries under contract. They've got Dejan Vasiljevic under contract. Montrezl Harrell, Kendrick Davis not under contract at this stage. Would you go with one, both, or none of them next year? You're saying all of them, are you?
All of them, Jack. And you know what? I thought Jarrell Martin started to look really good in those final 2 games. He was moving better. He had a terrible season with his health. Here's the thing. If you go out and you try and recruit other pieces, is it going to make you any better? Is it going to get you closer to the target? The other thing I do, Jack, I'd be trying to talk Jason Cadee out of this retirement stuff.
Yeah, we'll get to Jason Cadee a little bit later on. You're more glass half full about Adelaide than what I thought you were going to be honest.
I am, because I see the growth. And I know that Kendrick Davis is one of the best players in the competition. He showed signs of immaturity during the season. There's no doubt about that. But he also showed tremendous signs of growth and maturity. And next year, he'll be 25, 26 in our competition. He is only going to get better. He learned a lot. Again, you start changing over to different personnel. We've seen Adelaide's history in that regard over the past few seasons. It hasn't been great. If you want to fly close to the sun the way Matt Weston has done this year, that's fine. But you want to do it with the proviso that you have tremendous talent, and that's something that they have.
Quick word on the Sydney Kings. It was a few days ago now, but their season is done. You were there on Thursday night. Again, a game that at times felt winnable for them, but they just didn't seem to be able to get over that hump or know how to get over that hump and win the game.
Just not enough offensive punch. And I don't know how much you can apportion blame to different people within the franchise, but the injuries had their toll over the course of the season. The suspension to Xavier Cooks was really difficult for them to get over, always was going to be. And given what we know now, it's probably best that they lost, Jack. We want the best 4 teams in the semifinals, and clearly throughout the course of the season, they were not a top 4.
I feel like this is a question that we could do a whole show on the Sydney Kings, and maybe we will one day soon, but let's not forget they were everyone's preseason pick to win the NBL championship. They were yours. They were mine. They were Andrew Gay's. They were everyone's selection to win it, and they finished 6th and they lose a playing game. To me, that feels like a massive failure.
It's a disappointing season. You cannot try and dance around it. And I guess when you compare season to season and look at the previous season, the one shining light was that they were good on the defensive end. The season prior, they were really poor. So if we're looking at progress, there certainly was progress in that regard. Offensively, though, they underperformed. They didn't find any chemistry offensively. And in the offseason, I think they need to make a number of moves with their personnel. I think they need more leadership. I think they need more mental toughness. And certainly that's something that I'm sure Brian Goorjian will be very enthusiastic to address in recruiting this next team.
We're going to have a lot of time between now and next week because of the wretched fever break to talk about Melbourne and Perth. But just first impressions of this series, Darius. I mean, particular for the Wildcats, they've been able to have all sorts of offensive fun in this last month or so, 6 weeks, and put big numbers up on the board. Is the holiday over for them, though? Because they're going to come up against a Melbourne team who pride themselves on the defensive end of the floor.
That's a humorous question. Is the holiday over? This is a fascinating series because we've seen Melbourne United not perform consistently on the defensive end this season, and going against a really good offensive team that is led right now by Bryce Cotton, who is on one of the greatest offensive runs we've seen in league history. I don't know, Jack. I think this is a really dangerous one for Melbourne United. I think game one will say a lot about this series. If Melbourne United get blasted in game one, I've got some serious doubts about their prospects in game two.
For them and Illawarra, the fact that they won't have played for the best part of 3 weeks, are you concerned a little bit by that?
You know, I never loved that. Basketball is meant to be played in game every 2-3 days. To have that level, simulate game type experience over this break. But if you swing it back to Melbourne United, this is where I believe they have a slight advantage because Dean Vickerman has seen everything. He knows how to manipulate his team during these breaks. He knows how to get them ready for what's coming. And I think that's where the balance really lies in this series. I think overall, Perth are more talented and performing better right now.
Let's get to thumbs up and thumbs down. We'll start with a positive. You can go first, but I've got the feeling that we're going to have the same thumbs up.
Thumbs up. I'm going to give it to, I don't know if you're going to have this, Jack. I'm going to give it just on one game to Ben Ayre.
Oh.
I thought that performance was sensational. And from someone who never really came off the bench and had to experience what he's gone through this season, I don't know how players have the mental toughness and strength and keep themselves in the right frame of mind and keep themselves skill sharp, physically well conditioned. I really admire what he was able to do at the most important time for the South East Melbourne.
I love that. I didn't have that as my thumbs up, but I love that. My thumbs up, which I know you've spoken about already, is really close to home for you, and I think will be for a lot of people in the NBL, and that is the retirement of Jason Cadee. He deserved better. The story shouldn't have finished the way that it did yesterday. 424 games. Derek, if you were picking an all-NBL solid human team, Jason Cadee would be a guard in that team every day of the week. He is one of the best players / people that I've met in this game in my time. You've known him for a lot longer than I have. It is a shame that he's not going to be around anymore, but he's had such an amazing career from the setbacks and the car accident that very nearly could have been a lot worse. He is a wonderful, wonderful person, and he deserves all of his flowers.
He certainly does. And, you know, I can't believe that he's retiring, not only because, as I've said previously, it's a link to how old I am actually getting, Jack. But from a basketball perspective, he still has plenty to provide. We saw it this year. He did a great job for the Sixers, and I understand he feels like it's time for him to start the next phase. A great partner to him, and what they're creating in terms of their domestic life is wonderful. But as you talk about that first team, all good person, good player, Jack, he's the captain.
Yeah.
and he's the leader. And I think the Adelaide 36ers will miss his leadership and his presence significantly. And I think that's one of the first pieces that they have to go find, someone that can provide the presence that Jason Cadee gave them. And it is, these are always difficult because there's a sadness that you can probably see in me, but there's also a congratulatory nature to my comments. But all the best to Jason, and well done.
Hear, hear. Perfectly spoken. Thumbs down?
Thumbs down. I'm going to go just to the Sydney Kings. I know they had legitimate excuses throughout the course of the season, but I still thought, with the level of talent they had, with the great man Brian Goorjian at the helm, that they would have advanced into the top 4. And this season will mark, Jack, and Goorjian team has not finished in the top 4 in the playoffs. So it was a significant hit to Brian Goorjian in terms of his career. That streak is now over. But I think the Kings now in the offseason have some soul searching to do. They've got to look at that roster. They've got to look at the import selections and improve it. The league continues to get better each year, and the Kings probably just missed the mark a bit with their selections. But even saying that, some guys, when they had the opportunity to step up, probably didn't play at the level that they were credited with being able to before the season started.
My thumbs down. Well, this news came on Valentine's Day, which is supposed to be a happy day, Derek. It's supposed to be a day where you tell people that you love them and what they mean to you and all that sort of stuff. And, I know you probably gave out about 20 roses on Valentine's Day. I gave out 3 in my house. The news that we didn't want to get on Valentine's Day, I think, was the news that we knew was coming, was that Adam Forde and the Cairns Taipans will no longer be in a relationship. It's a shame. We've spoken before, you and I both, on this show and other platforms, how much we love Adam Forde, and what he offers this league, I think, is so unique and so fantastic. So my thumbs down, it's not a negative. It's just a damn shame that Adam Forde won't be coaching the Taipans and probably won't be in the league next season.
And Jack, the mere fact that everything is so ambiguous around what happened, where Forde is destined to go, I think it doesn't give us the closure that we're wanting. We're wanting to see that he has signed a deal elsewhere. And that can kind of, like I said, it gives us a sense of finality. And right now, there's a lot of rumors about what's next for him, but he's done a really good job up there. And at times, it was really tough, and it's always going to be tough in Cairns. But when you look at what he's able to do in terms of player development, the competitiveness at times that we've seen the Cairns Taipans, their exciting style of play, and really promoting his players onto better pastures, I think he can take great pride in what he's able to do, although I'm sure he's feeling disappointed that he didn't get the ultimate prize. But if you're looking to make a final evaluation on Adam Forde, he is a high-quality basketball coach.
Forde, we absolutely love you. And whatever's next, we wish you all the best. No question about that. So that's us done and dusted for Moments That Matter. Derek, I just want to ask you one little thing before we go, because I had a look at my calendar this morning, and there's something in my calendar that I didn't know was there last week. Is Derek Rucker's top 15 not far away?
Jack, it's done. It's locked in, and I can't wait. It was a nervous weekend knowing that the onslaught that's to come. I think this is my best 15. I really feel confident that the public is going to be very excited, very enraged, and enthusiastic about what they see in this top 15.
All right. I haven't seen this list, and I'm very interested to see where this all lands. You need to keep your eyes on NBL.com.au for all the latest news and information during this playoff series, and of course, for Derek Rucker's upcoming top 15. Have a great week. Thanks for watching Moments That Matter.